Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here. I actually have my coffee, so I'm good to go. I always tease friends of mine in education and say you're not a real educator if you don't drink coffee. So they always laugh at me. I want to first say that this work, as Dr. Christopher mentioned, is both professional and deeply personal. When the chancellor of the schools asked me to join DCPS, I was humbled and honored because I've spent my entire career both as a classroom teacher, as an administrator, but as also the son of Spelman and Morehouse educated parents, who my mother has a lengthy history with the federal government from her protest life, but I also have a deep connection to this work because my father spent the majority of my life in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, even though he had a Morehouse degree. And so I always say to young folks that while education might be your vehicle to the future, the choices you make along the way is the instrument to making sure that that future can happen. And so with that in mind, I'm honored to have this group of young folks here to share their story. And as the great tradition of Gloria Ladson Billings and James Baldwin, we live through story in the African American community, not data and numbers. And so I want to give these young folks an opportunity to share their story, but I'd like for them just to do a brief introduction of who you are, your name, and where you're coming from. And then the last part of that question is, why is this work so important to you?
Good morning. My name is Christopher Reed, DC native. I am the program manager for the Washington Nationals Youth Baseball Academy. This work is important to me because I wouldn't be sitting here if someone else wasn't doing the work 20 some odd years ago.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Moore. I am a senior mentor for the Life Pieces to Masterpieces art program. This work is very, very important to me, and I'm very passionate about it because if it hadn't been for strong male guidance and female guidance in my life, I wouldn't be here to give the same guidance to the young people that I work with today.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Harris. I'm the program manager for CBM Cares, Prince George's County, with a mentor initiative with Concerned Black Men National. This work is important to me because I was that kid who had the shoes that were talking, who had holes in the shoes. I was that kid who, growing up in Glass Manor over in Oxon Hill, I was that kid who didn't have enough to eat. I was that kid who even people in my family said that I wasn't worth going to a good high school. Far too often, I know it's other young men who hear this stuff and they see it in the news day after day. And at a certain point in time, you start internalizing that. It's my job to hopefully influence these young men and also influence you guys to work tirelessly, understanding that this is happening with these young men.
Good morning. My name is Nathaniel Cole. I'm the executive director for Urban Alliance. We're a nonprofit that provides paid internships to high school seniors. I'm also a DC native, and the reason why I do this work, it makes sense. And most importantly, before I came to Urban Alliance in a staff capacity, I was a participant in the program. So I understood at an early age the importance of exposure, to the point that the young man earlier brought up, and that's why I wanted to be plugged into an organization that was providing exposure for young people across the city, especially young people that looked like me, because I understood what it meant to have an internship at a major company going into undergrad, where I was challenged by people who didn't look like me, who thought I was less than, but being able to stand on previous experience, just the power behind that. And so I wanted to be able to be a part of the process that allowed other young people to be able to navigate different areas and arenas. So that's me.
Good morning. My name is Antonio Robson. I'm currently, I live in Washington, D.C. If you look at professional sports nowadays, and you look at the athletes that are going through the issues that they're going through, and you look at if they had access to programs such as Community on the Rise, Junior Roving Leader, Youth Outreach Coordinator, mental health, Well, as you can see, they all will have learned lessons like life. They will all have learned lessons such as life, respect, and respect of self. So it would be less domestic violence. It would be less profanity towards others, and be less drama in that field, professional sports. So my whole mission for doing this stuff right here is to like do my like I want to save a life, and I grew up with so many people and so many youth, and so many youth done been gone, done been taken away from me. So my whole thing is to just save a life, and at least I made a path. So I'm hoping these youth follow my lead, so they could come right through.
Thank you. So the first question is related to success, and we know, and was on the previous panel was mentioned kind of the negative narrative around black masculinity, right? And this master narrative of failure, of criminalization, and so on and so forth. For you, how can we rewrite that narrative using your stories as an example? What do you see as success for yourself and for black men in general?
So I grew up in Prince George's County in D.C., went to Archbishop Carroll, was fortunate enough to get a scholarship at East Carolina. As we graduated playing ball down there, we developed a core group of guys, black men, who we all lean on each other. Most of us have kids and had kids either that last year of college or first couple of years. And one of the things that always shone through is we always leaned on each other to be fathers to our families. If ever somebody was kind of wavering, or somebody, we heard that somebody wasn't seeing their kids, or they weren't, living up to their obligation, we would have some conversations. And through about maybe 13 guys, there's one guy who we ostracized and kept on talking to and trying to lift him up so that he could take care of his two twin daughters. Situation all crazy, and woman dating another guy and all that stuff. We ostracized him to the point to where he felt an obligation to take care of his kids, and now he's connected back with those kids. For me, and for my core group, that's masculinity, and we don't define it as how much money. We're all in different pay scales. We don't define it as the job that you have, but the core thing in this 10, 12 years after school that's shown through is taking care of your kids and taking care of your family.
Well, my story is different. Well, I came up in a community where we have a lot of crime. We have a lot of I can go on and on about what we got in our community, what we don't have. But my story is pretty much like I was the only one that stood out. I stood out. I went to school. I graduated. I went to college. My short story. I went my senior year. I walked in Spring Senior High School with 13 of my buddies. I say within 10 to 15 minutes, they all got kicked out because they thought it was the same Spring On. It was a change, a different principle, a different atmosphere right before they closed it down. I want to say 6 or 7 months later, I'm the only one walking across the stage. So I told them that, it's not about what school you go to, what neighborhood you grew up in. It was more so that you just gotta put your mind to it, and you gotta know that you can do it. Like, I grew up with all you all, and I was born in the same hood as you all, and like I made it out. So my connection with them is I come back and I get them every knowledge, every little piece of knowledge that I got, I give them my best. So that's what my core values and everything that I stand for. I bring it back to them and do my best to give them what I have to give them.
Success to me has a lot to do with perseverance. Being a DC native, and most of you young black men can probably understand this, low expectations are set on black males in DC. At the best, you'll graduate high school and get a job. At the best, you may be able to join the military. At the best, you may be able to play a sport. I thrive off of exceeding those low expectations. Every time an expectation is placed on me, I go the next step or the next level. To me, that's success, because I can model for the next child what it means to be successful. And the sad thing about DC Teens, and Antonio and I have done work together through DPR, the sad thing about DC Teens is that there aren't too many people modeling what true success is. To them, success is having money, having a flashy car, having women, having the latest shoes and clothes. That's why kids were dying over sneakers, because that was success. If you could bottle that energy up and put it into getting a scholarship or getting out your mother's house, anything, we would be far greater as a community, because it's not that we have a lack of talent. It's not that we have a lack of mental ability. And a lot of times we're deemed unhealthy mentally, which I think is a slap in the face. It's more so we just don't have that direction. And so success for myself and my peers, like my colleague said, is grouping together and pushing forward for goals. It doesn't have to be the same goal, but a lot of times the goal is doing the right thing. And success is being able to stand up as a man on your own 2 feet and not worry about somebody supporting you financially, and be able to give back to the community that gave to you. So that's success to me.
So success to me is it's a complacent thing, because success, I feel, is a stagnant term, because a lot of times people reach success, and after you've reached your success, what else is there left for you? So what I try to strive for, like my brother just said, is goals. So once you reach a success, a lot of times, I know particularly the people I grew up with in D.C., a success for them was graduating high school. Well, once you've done that, what are you going to do? I graduated, I continue to further my education, and I'm still furthering it, so I have a goal. So once I've reached that goal, I'm continuing to strive for other goals. I never allow myself to become complacent or happy or stagnant or remain where I am, because then success, it becomes irrelevant. Success is only good if you're still striving to do better. So reaching one success and not having anything else to go for, it's irrelevant. So continue your goals, to have a mindset to improve yourself, to better yourself, and to further who you are as a person, to me, is what true success really is.
So the idea of success is something that my parents really focused on with me and my sister growing up. And for us, and my story, the foundation has always been faith and family. So for my parents, my mother always said, you will fulfill the purpose God has for your life. And it was my parents always speaking life into my situation. When you're trying to figure out, how do I work through a situation? When I'm met with racism or ageism or whatever that ism might be, how do I press through? And I press through because I know who I am and I know whose I am. So for me, the power in being successful is fulfilling that purpose that God has placed on your life. And in that, for me personally, being able to stand on Scripture in those times of troubles and challenges and know that I'm more than a conqueror. Greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So for me, that's where I draw my power from. So in order to be successful is me seeking God on a daily basis. And tying this back into this work that I do with Urban Alliance or throughout DC, period, it's having a conversation with young people and asking them, where does your power come from? Because I know in the time that we're in, we all come from different faiths, we all come from different backgrounds. But where you draw your power from is going to be crucial in how you move forward, and then that whole thing of success is going to manifest itself in rightly so. So for me, the short version is my faith and my family has always been the driving force behind, how I look at success, how I gauge what success is, and why I do this work and how I do this work.
Well, so one of the big pieces is this whole role of social media. And so most folks who know me, I recently joined Twitter, and one of my graduate students at the university before I came to DC, I said, yeah, I'm doing that twitting thing, that whatever you call it. And they're like, Dr. Simmons, it's Twitter and you tweet. And I was like, who? Right? So I don't do Facebook, Instagram, any of that. But I also recognize the power of social media these days to influence large groups of people. And I always talk about the role of the Arab Spring and its connection to social media and how that drove that revolution in that part of the world. So the question that I'd like to pose to this group is, what does an effective social media campaign look like to promote Black male achievement and success in Washington, D.C.? And I'm going to take notes because I need to figure out this whole social media thing.
I took some notes on this question. One, it has to catch the children's attention. It's already going to do that because they do this more than they interface with you. Mm-hmm. So that's first. It has to be something catchy that comes with a hashtag or something that has some substance. It can't just be an occasional post. It should be like a structured day of posting. It should start with inspiration. It should include job openings, events, anything worthwhile to our children on a daily basis. It should keep a calendar for these kids. But one of the biggest things in the last panel, Mr. Garrell said that he wanted to see successful Black men. But the thing is, there are many successful young Black men. It's just not being celebrated. So if you use this platform, use it well. Use it to promote. For every time there is a Trayvon Martin or a Mike Brown incident, you should blast 10 young Black men that are doing their thing. Because the thing is, the media, and we want to blame the media for the spin that they put on us. But what spin do we put on ourselves? What do we put out there for us to see? And what got me thinking this was I went to Georgetown. And my first semester there, I was in awe because walking to the school, I'm thinking, white people. That's all it's going to be. All minorities in my class. And I met a young man. He had just graduated from Morehouse. He was 24 years old at the time. He was a regional sales rep for Reebok. I still keep in touch with him through LinkedIn, which is social media.
I use LinkedIn.
That we should definitely push. We should definitely push LinkedIn for our younger people instead of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. LinkedIn.
Get off Twitter.
But I still keep up with Stefan through LinkedIn, and he's now a global sales rep for Reebok within 3 years' time. And nobody knows that. He's a young Black man from New Jersey, from Camden, New Jersey at that. So we have to, if you're going to use social media, use it in a way to celebrate us. And not just every once in a while. I mean literally every day. Somebody new should be up there. And not the same, and no disrespect, but not the same Black History Month speech that every kid gets. Seriously, we're all Black history. Every day we are living Black history. And it shouldn't be a month. It should be a whole year.
I think an effective way for social media to really make an impact would be to use the faces of the young African Americans from the community. So we talk about young Black males and what they don't do, what they can't do, what they haven't done. What about the young Black male who graduated with a 4.0 GPA? What about the young Black male who's taking an internship that nobody else would take, that doesn't pay any money, but it's going to set him up for his future? Mm-hmm. So there's so many young Black males from D.C. and from the rest of the country that are taking the steps to create openings for young Black males in the future, and we don't give them any respect, we don't give them any praise, we don't give them any love, and we don't show them. We go through these magazines, and we go through TV, and all you ever see is young Black man killed, young Black man fighting, young Black man rapping, young Black man's an athlete. There are plenty of young Black males with suits on. There are plenty of young Black males with their pants pulled up. We're not all gangbangers. We're not all thugs. We're not all criminals. So I think taking young Black males from our communities and having them represent in social media, so put the hashtag next to their name, something successful business leaders of the future, hashtagging young Black achievers, hashtagging grown man doing what he has to do, and giving them a platform where they can really show what they're doing. Because until we do that, young black males are just going to keep either flying under the radar, or they're going to end up in situations where nobody pays them any attention, and then they end up in jail, in prison, and they're dead. And that's the only time we get love, and that's not the only time that a black man should be in the news. So
I circled this question because with social media, I'm not up as well as I should be. But one of the smartest things that I did, I do direct services with some of the young men. One of the smartest things I did was get on Instagram. And I'm an Instagram friend with, I say maybe 20 of my kids. I was seeing all types of explicit things, put your middle finger up. I've seen fights going on in the school. I've seen threats. I've seen all these things communicated through Instagram that I wouldn't already know about. I guess for this question, what I would say to everyone out there is make sure you're up on what the young men are up on. If you're still on Facebook or Twitter, quick story. One of my kids told me to do the ice challenge, the ALS ice water challenge. Well, I did it. I just posted it to Facebook. He's still on Instagram saying, "Coach, you ain't do my challenge." I said, "Yeah, I did. I did it on Facebook." He said, "Well, ain't nobody on Facebook no more." So what that told me is, as I'm going through, I mean, he was serious because none of them are on Facebook. But if I wasn't on Instagram, then I wouldn't be able to connect with these kids. So as I recruit my black male mentors to work with the kids, one of the things that I do in my training is I tell them, get on Instagram. Start asking these kids how you navigate these things. I still don't know what to do on my LinkedIn, so you're going to help me after this. Thank you.
I would just add two pieces. The first is with the council or the body over whatever the campaign would be, make sure you have 3 to 5 young people, age appropriate, on the committee, because those young people are going to bring a wide perspective, an array of just things that you might not consider. The second, making sure that there are multiple images. And to what the gentleman stated earlier, success looks different for different young people. And visually, I'm a visual person. A suit, a successful black man in a suit might appeal to me, whereas for my best friend, it might be that athlete because he is athletic and that is his passion or his drive. For someone else, it might be someone who's not in a suit and tie or an athlete, but that in between, that person who can go to work in jeans and a polo, but you're still netting, multi-millions a year. So just an array of images of what success looks like, because we have to always remember that the young people and the young men that we're trying to serve are an array, and they aren't in one box, and we always have to make sure that we're capturing that. So that's my 2 cents.
I would say I got Instagram, so I see so much on Instagram. But what I don't see is all the positive stuff. I don't see all the agencies posting stuff about trainings where youth can go to get help from. I see all the negative stuff, but the negative stuff is there because that's what youth love to do. And if all the government agencies will get, I want to say, like you said, would you say 3 to 5 youth to campaign their website, then they need to do that, because that's how you would get in contact with all these youth. You got to get it. It don't matter what kind of phone you got. You just got to get a group of youth and get an account for your government website and let them know where they can find training all over the place at. Mind you, each neighborhood or in the DMV, they have resources, but with the smartphones, that's their resource. They can do everything with their phone. So you got to get their government agency to campaign and with them 5 youth and go from there. That's how you go promote everything through Instagram.
Instagram, I got to figure this one out. All right, so one of the critical pieces, especially in the field of education, is the role of adults. And one of the things we know in the research is that the most critical element to the success of students in general in schools is the teacher. So we had a conversation earlier about the role of low expectations, and I would encourage everyone. There was a great article about 6 years ago by a woman named Julie Landsman in ASCD. It was called the role of the racism of low expectations. I would encourage everyone to go get it. because it points out a lot of the things that were mentioned earlier. But to that point, for the panel, what do you think adults need to do in order to support young African American men? What should we stop doing, like right now? Please be honest and candid. And then what should we increase?
As a adult, we will need some support. You will have to support your child, whether he's doing bad, good, whatever. You raise him. He stands for the moms. He stands your stomach for 9 months. For the dad be all over the place trying to figure out, okay, if I'm gonna stick with mom for the rest of the 18 years. But regardless of you with the mom or not, you gotta support your child, whether what case there is. When it comes to what need to be increases, you need to show your kids some love. That way your kid won't be out here all over the place. If he know that he got support at home and he getting help from where his strengths and his weaknesses, he just need his support and love. And when dealing with these youth, that's all they really want is love and someone that showed them that they care. And the last part of the question was,
What should we stop doing?
we should stop bashing them, stop judging them. As seniors and elderly people, we should just stop judging youth because of something that they done wrong. They got in the system because of something that their friend did, but you think he's a bad person because he has a record. No, as an elderly person, you gotta look at these youth as they not just your child, but they are adults too. So you gotta respect them all the way around, because that's the only way you gonna get their attention and get respect from them. So you gotta stop judging them and build a relationship with them. That's the only way you gonna get to them. Help them.
To answer the question, I believe the first thing we need to do is we need to change our mindset about the youth. So first, the mindset the trouble mindset that always end the stuff, that has to stop. And the help needs to increase, because I notice a lot of times people are looking to help people outside the communities, but you can't help the community if you're never in the community. So I hear all these things about all these agencies that they see it from the outside, but until you actually go in and do the work and been a part of it and lived it, you can't understand the circumstances and the struggles that come with it. So if you're always outside the community, never going into it, you'll never understand how that you can help your community. And what needs to increase, we need to increase, I think, maybe some recreational centers. We need places for our youth to have a way to express themselves, because that's another thing that's lacking in our African American communities. I noticed that you can go into a black community and see a liquor store on every corner, but where's a place for youth to hang out and just have a safe environment? Some place to get something to eat, hang with your friends, maybe play sports, do art. We don't offer that. We don't give them a place to express themselves, to feel safe. So they go out and they do these things to express themselves, and oftentimes it is in a negative light. And so that definitely needs to increase in our communities. And what we need to change is the mind. We need to stop the bashing, because outside of our community, it comes enough. The last thing we need to do is put our own people down. And there's a phrase that somebody gave to me: the nature of man is we fear what we don't understand, we hate what is different, and we destroy what we can't control. And that needs to stop, because we do. We fear what we don't understand, and when we don't understand it, we hate it. And then we try to tear it down. That definitely needs to stop in our community. Instead of tearing it down, we need to build it back up. And the only way we can do that is to start supporting one another.
Absolutely. I want to ask one last question before we get to Q&A. And so for those who haven't responded on the panel to the previous question, I'd like for you to respond to this one. It's a $10 million question. I don't have $10 million. But if you had $10 million, what types of things would you support in your work? And then what types of things would you support outside of your professional work?
$10 million question. I'm going to just be upfront. $10 million ain't enough. But in my work, with what I do, and just with dealing with DC youth in general, exposure is key. Get these kids out of their neighborhoods, get them out of their comfort zones, get them out of the city limits, get them out of Virginia, Maryland, take them elsewhere. They need to see colleges. They need to see historic places. They need to see their history. Part of the problem is, like, a lot of kids, like, I grew up 10 blocks from here, and out of everybody in my neighborhood, they still stand on that block right now because they feel like they have ownership over 900 Shepherd Street. We don't own none of that, and that's one thing that needs to be debunked. So a lot of ways to do that is exposure. I'm really big into trips. UPO does a lot of work in Southeast. They're located on Good Hope Road. They do a free college tour every year. Part of that money should be to enhance that. So it's not just 52 kids, it's 520 kids. And take them different places, allow them to see a lot of different things. Another thing I would do within DC, one thing I've always liked, because I guess I came up in it, I think Antonio came up in it, is the Summer Youth Employment Program. Extend it. It needs to be year round. Don't give kids eight weeks of work and expect them to be professionally ready. Give them a whole year. Give them an opportunity to actually know what it feels like to have a check every 2 weeks and budget your money and help your family out and help yourself out and take care of yourself. If you give more opportunities like that, you build an infrastructure, you build a basis and a foundation. So when people are turning 18 and they get out of high school, they're not learning skills. I got friends that are 30 and they don't have working skills. So give them those opportunities. And something that honestly don't cost no money. Everybody in here, for the most part, either is a part of an organization or works with an organization. They've talked about having an umbrella. Build an umbrella for internships for these kids. Give them somewhere else to be, something else to do. A lot of stuff that we need, and I know $10 million was the cap, it don't even cost that much. It's just giving the kids an opportunity. And I do want to say one thing for the last question, I'm sorry, but the one thing I feel like adults need to stop doing is elitism. We can't be elite in our own community. Like, that's doing what everybody else is doing. And I look at the civil rights movement, we were all together. You don't see that now. I could walk out this door today and walk past them, because I don't dress like this often. I'm sorry, I don't. I wear jeans, I'm a sneakerhead, but I'm a professional at that. But I could walk past them tomorrow like I usually dress. They wouldn't know who I am because they have a suit on and I don't. You would think, oh, that's a professional man, but you have no clue of my walk or what I've been through. So let's stop the elitism. That has to stop amongst all of us. Whether you're well-versed in what you're doing or you're a young man who had the heart to get up and ask a question, we should all be on the same page.
Well said.
I would just add to that, with that much money, I would say look at programs that are doing the work already in the community and build that capacity, allowing organizations to go to scale. And scale for different organizations looks different. For Urban Alliance, personally, I would love to see us go to scale in DC. And to your earlier point, we provide like those paid internships year-round for young people, and knowing the impact that has on a young person, just those employability skills, being able to navigate different environments, for me personally is crucial. But outside of Urban Alliance, it would be anything strengthening the community, and that looks different for different parts of the city, because all young people, especially young men of color, have different needs, and different organizations speaks to that. So that's.
I went to the National Mentoring Summit this past January, and there was a story of a young woman. She was a young Hispanic girl who she had a mentor, and her life totally changed from this mentor, and everything was great and was wonderful and fine. And coming from an organization that works in mentoring, like, we like to believe that. We help her make the change. What they didn't tell you is that this young girl was removed from her environment and put into a school that costs about $30,000, $40,000 a year. And a lot of her change came from being removed from that environment. So like great minds think alike. When you say take kids out of the community, being a young kid growing up in Glass Manor and moving over to Georgia Avenue, I didn't like the school year. The school year, I can remember very little from my childhood because I choose not to. But what I remember is every summer through Marion where I end up going down to Camp Riverview and being around black men who cared about me for 3 months at a time. That's where I gained how to socialize. That's where I gained how to interact with young ladies. That's where I learned what things were lame and what things were right. Being removed from my situation, and I'm not saying take these kids out of their homes, but at some point in time, you have to remove them to show them something different, because day after day, even in good schools, even in schools that are productive and have the greatest teachers, these kids still go back home to these same communities. So if I got $10 million, what I'm doing is make sure kids every summer get out of their neighborhoods and go and learn from real men.
Well said. We have time for about 2 or 3 questions. So if we have anyone who has a question, please step to the mic and we'll take your questions. Gentleman to my left, your right.
Yes. First, I'm very excited that this young man went to Curl and Camp Riverview, which is my story as well, brother. And you're right about environment. It saved everybody in my neighborhood because we got out of Deanwood by Kenilworth during the height of the crack epidemic. And thank God for that opportunity. We would have all been wiped out. It wasn't a matter of, and I had a father and all of that, but you're right. The environment is critical. My question is for everyone on the panel, can you share with us as a group, what were the points in your life what made the most difference? And I don't know if that's an easy question, but he talked about Camp Riverview. Can you also share pivotal moments, pivotal people that helped turn the corner? Maybe that's not necessarily traditional, maybe non-traditional, but if you could help enlighten us on, from your perspective, what were those moments that really made the change for you?
3 moments and 3 people. The first person is Lee Thompson. Lee Thompson has been with me since I was 8 years old. She's a sports management professional. She's worked in professional sports. She's worked in the nonprofit sector in D.C. She also did some work with the trust for a while. Her just basically carrying me everywhere with her and showing me the business. That was 1. 2 was Ed Hill. Ed Hill's a sports information director at Howard University. He gave me my first job ever selling programs at Howard football games. And that went to working stats at games and doing media and then doing bigger events. And just showing me another side of the business. And I always call them my professional parents, because they showed me how to work and what it meant to work and something I actually like to do, which is sports. Third was my grandmother. She passed in 2008. I was raised by my grandmother and for a long time enabled by her, because it was always made all right. It was okay to get C's. It was okay to hang out till 3 in the morning. It was okay to eat carryout or whatever the case may be. And yeah, I love my grandmother to death, and most of what I do it for her. But the pivotal moment was when she passed away, I had to make a decision to be a man, to take care of myself and to do for self. And I went from neighborhood guy, I had a 1.9 GPA graduating high school. I was a 4.0 student in college because Nana wasn't here to take care of me anymore. So those were my 3 moments and my 3 people.
For me, my moments would definitely be, well, the person I would say, my mother, being from a single parent family, my mother definitely had to be a very strong woman because, of course, she had to be the parent in my life. Of course, I put her through some troubling times doing the things that I did, but the times where I could have either gotten myself locked up or anything else, my mother was the one who made sure she took care of me regardless. She loved me regardless, and that love, that everlasting love, really made me want to change my life for her. Ms. Mary Brown, she's the executive director. Well, she was the executive director and the co-founder of Life Pieces to Masterpieces. After I had been away from the program for some time, she actually she called me, and we talked, and she had heard about some of the things that I had been getting myself involved in. And she told me that if I was ready to make a change in my life and to get back to being the young man that I knew I was, to come back to the program and to be a mentor and to make a change in the young men's lives that we work with. And that really was a stepping stone for me, because it started my journey where I was a 1.3 GPA average as a freshman and a sophomore to me graduating high school with honors. So she really made an impact in my life. And the last person would be the person she passed the reins to as far as the executive director, Selvin Waldron, who's actually here with me today. He became my mentor. So when it became, I feel a mentor is a person that you respect, who's honest with you, who you can go to about anything, and who always gives you the best and looks at you and wants the best for you. And he did that for me. He guided me. He helped me grow as a young man. He helped me get myself ready for school. And he's always encouraging me. And he very much made an impact in my life so that I could make an impact in others as well.
Very briefly, Dave, that question, man, actually, it's two things. You and those other guys where you at, Dave? Stand up, please. You and those guys at Camp Riverview, stand all the way up, man. Because you and those guys at Camp Riverview, not only at Camp Riverview, but also when I went to Carroll, like you guys raised the level of expectation for me. I was the bummiest kid at Assumption Catholic School on MLK. And you guys showed me how to be a Carroll man. But not only that, you showed me how to be a man at Camp Riverview. So those two, it was the only place I saw men who were positive. So I appreciate that, man. But the second thing, as a freshman over at Carroll, I was on my way home from basketball practice, and I got robbed and assaulted at gunpoint. And I knew I couldn't make this trek. I didn't even want to go to school no more. But my grandmother worked with a woman who her sons went to Carroll, and this woman took me in, no questions asked. And she had a husband there, Mr. Johnson. He was the meanest Vietnam vet you would ever want to meet. But this guy showed me how to be a man. And he took me in, he didn't even know me. I could have been the craziest kid ever. But Mr. Johnson took me in. And to this day, he is the only father I've ever known. So that's what changed.
For me, it was my freshman year of high school. Because up until that point, I kind of just coasted by. And I remember it was like within the first month, and my English teacher told us to free write. And for me, I was like, I'm going to do the least amount of writing that I need to do. So I did that. I told her I was done. She came around. She looked at what I put down, and she said, that's not good enough. You need to do more. You know you can do more. And in that moment, I was like, you're right. And so I went back and I did more. And she was always that person in my corner that pushed me. So that same year, when the report card came out, first semester, first time in my life, I had a 4.0, straight A's. My dad came for parent-teacher conference, and he asked my teachers, well, what can he do better? And in that moment, I was confused because I wanted to know why my dad hated me. Because I was like, I worked really hard. What are you talking about? And I quickly learned that for him, it was always about you can always push yourself to do more. You can always keep going. No matter if you think you've met the standard, what else can you do? So for me, that was my turning point between my teacher and my dad and my parents pushing me to always do a little bit more and to keep going. And that's the thing that I always try to give to the young people that I come in contact with. Yeah, you're doing, X, or you're performing at whatever the level is, but what else can you do? So that was my story.
My story was in the neighborhood. I always stood out. So one time I just hung with the older crowd. I hung with everybody that was 20 or better, 30, 40. I hung with the older crowd. So I put myself in that environment because I wanted to see for myself what it was. One day I was stuck in a shootout. I was like, I'm standing up. It's about 10 of us. They all sitting around, sitting on crates and stuff, but I'm the only one standing up. Mind you, I'm only 4 foot even, so I'm like, there's some live bullets flying, but I'm still standing there. I'm dazed. I'm actually watching the guy shoot the gun, and I'm just standing there. I'm like, this dazed. So the next time, ain't nothing happened. Ain't nobody get hit. Thank God, ain't nobody get hit. So next day, hard head, go back same spot where I just came from. And another incident just like that happened. This time, ain't nobody get hit again. So I'm like, okay, I still ain't learned my lesson. I go back. So Sunday came around. It was church. I heard some noise, you know. I ain't never really been a church type, but me standing out, so I took the step to go into church. So the pastor said he was a prophet, and he was like, the next bullet got your name on it. And I was like, what? And he was like, the next bullet got your name on it. And I'm like, why would the next bullet have my name on it? I'm not even listening to what he's saying. He just keeps saying the next bullet gonna have your name on it. The next time somebody shoot, you gonna die. So I'm like, whatever. So, you know, I don't feed into it. So I go back out, and I had an AAU basketball game because I love sports, but I always went back into, when I finished sports, I went back to where I just wasn't supposed to be. And I came back from a game, and I was like, it's so quiet. So I go in the house and get the phone call that my godbrother just got killed. And they were like, he got shot in the head. So I put my clothes on, go back down the street, and then I walks around and actually see him laying in the alley, one shoe on, one shoe off, slumped with a bullet hole in his head, with the blood coming down his head, sitting in the alley from like 50 yards away. And I was like, it broke me down all the way to a point where it was like, it was no turning back. So I started going to church. And then everybody, you know, made fun of me because I went to church. All my peers, the ones I hung around, they all made fun of me of why I went to church. And I'm like, well, it took 3 people that I was very close to get killed. And I'm talking about, like, I was sitting there today and they was gone tomorrow. Like, it took 3 times for it to happen. 3 people that I was real close to die to really wake me up and realize that, oh, I got to change my life. So I went, got baptized. Then ever since then, my ducks been falling. So that's what changed me. God.
Ed, do we have time for one more question? So we have time for one more question, and we'll let one of you respond. So we're close to time.
Okay. Well, this is just in regards to the comment made earlier about elitism. And for once, I'm seeing peers in my same age group discuss a topic like this. So I want to know, as my peers, how do we get our fellow 20-somethings also involved and actively engaged in this work outside of just a networking happy hour or brunching all the time? How do we reframe this issue in a, not necessarily bite-sized way, but in a way where our peers can take action and actually do something outside of retweeting and hashtagging and sharing to their friends on Facebook?
Easy. Volunteer. Get involved. My organization, I'm pretty sure every organization in here could always use an extra hand or a helping hand or somebody else with some want to give back and help. That's the easiest way to do it. And it doesn't take much. Like, my organization, to volunteer, it's an hour a week. As long as you're consistent and as long as you actually come in and want to work with children, that goes further than a retweet or a happy hour or just saying, oh, I went down there once or twice. Get involved. It doesn't take much to get involved, especially a working professional, because it's not like you're volunteering in the hopes that you may get a job someday. You're volunteering out of the goodness of your heart. So tell your peers, like, if you want to really help, be about it. Get out there and do it. Find an organization that needs help and just do it.
Let's give the panel one more round of applause.
Where we're going from here. So this conversation is great. This conversation is needed, and more conversations are needed, but what's really needed is the work and the action that's going to lead to the outcomes that we want. And that's what the trust, and that's what many of our partners, both in the city and around the country who have been represented here today and not in the room, have been focusing on. And so we have been developing a strategy for our city around boys and men of color, and we've had several convenings and several working group meetings, we have some working group meetings taking place tomorrow and Thursday, but we also are going to then expand that to much more in-depth conversations with hopefully many of you. So I'm glad that you're able to come in the room this morning, but where we really need you is going to be in your communities when we have this conversation, to hear from you there, to hear from you with the folks that you work with on a daily basis as to what we need to do to make sure that we get to the outcomes that we want. And that's an easy question to answer, because you've heard from our panelists here today. We know what the answers are. We know what the work is that it's going to take to get to where we want. It's like, do we have the political will? Do we have the personal will? Do we have the financial will to make it happen? And that's what it's really about, and being smart about it and connecting with each other. In as much as we have turf wars amongst all these neighborhoods and we're trying to get young people to stop fighting, we have to stop fighting with ourselves also and start protecting our turf around who's doing this work, who owns this work, who was at this meeting, I wasn't invited. You don't need to wait for an invitation. If you don't know in yourself every day that you get up that you should be in the front of a young person's face, or you should be on the front lines of making a difference, then you need to get into a new line of work. If you're waiting for me to call you, I'm not going to call you. You know where I am. You know where I'm going to be, and I'm going to be on Bellevue Street in Southeast Washington, D.C., which is where I grew up. I'm going to be in Georgia, on Georgia Avenue, Columbia Heights. I'm going to be in every neighborhood of this city, and we're going to get this done. And so my challenge to you is, if you don't think we can do it, test me. That's it. If you don't think we can do it, test me, try me, and you'll see what happens. But if you believe that we can do it, join me. So I hope that all of you today feel galvanized by what we heard today. I hope all of you feel that tension in your stomachs, because I'm ready to go. And I was standing here pacing. I had to walk out because the conversation was great, but I'm like, I need to get to work. There's so much to do. There's so much to do, and this is a necessary part of the work. And don't let anybody tell you, oh, we shouldn't have conversations. We need to have conversations. And for nothing else, I'm even more inspired by what I heard today to go out and do something today, right after this meeting, to make a difference. And as I said to all of you, it's not about what you're going to do tomorrow. Please don't sleep on this. It's not about sleeping on this and figuring out, okay, here's what our organization could do. Get up and do something about it right now. And don't disappear on us, because this conversation, this work is going to continue. And it has continued for, as Sean was saying, it's been a 400-year struggle and conversation for us. So it's not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. But we can make the issue go somewhere if we all band together and do something about it. And that's what my commitment is to you all. That's what my commitment is to every young person in this city, every adult in this room, every adult that you need to get into a room, is make sure that we're all on the same page in doing this work. And so our work is going to be around academic achievement. It's going to be around workforce development. It's going to be around health, not just physical health, mental health, and nutritional health. It's going to be around public safety and justice for our young people. And justice in the sense that the long arm of the law and sometimes the heavy hand of the law is not coming down on their necks. But also we need to give them other opportunities, because we know that we make life choices based on what our circumstances and what resources we have. And so sometimes getting caught up in the criminal justice system is around circumstances that have led us down that path, that was the only way. Their value system, their need to make choices is much different than ours. We have to own that and understand that for us, we don't see how a young person, how you can get up and say, I'm not going to school today. But for a young person, when you look at all the different factors in some of their lives, you can understand why they wouldn't go to school that day. But if we just approach it from the perspective that they're making the wrong choice, and we haven't built the system, we haven't built the communities to help them make the best choice for them, then we're not doing our job. And that's what the job is. And it's not a job that comes with a paycheck. It is a job that comes with a sense of building a beloved community, a better world for yourself and for everybody in it. And I hope that's why you came in this room today, is to get connected to that effort, because that's the effort that we're putting out there. And again, don't wait for the phone to ring. Don't wait for the email to chime. Jump in, fit in, get in, and stay in. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming.